coming up, and the particular things that I've been aware of and concerned about appear to have been addressed. So I'm wondering if there are similar concerns that business may have, how you're going to deal with that. The bills are double joined, is that it? Because I hadn't.
The bills are double joined. So the impact of which is we'll take action on AB 46 today. If it should be approved by this committee, it moves forward. But its enactment is conditional on AB 781 also passing. We will have a very thorough, I'm sure, conversation about the details of 781 in 2 weeks' time that will allow the business community, the labor community, and others to express themselves prior to that process and during the committee hearing, so that if there are refinements that are consistent with the purpose of the legislation, we could take them.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Kehoe, and then Senator Liu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Speaker, you know, your attempt to address the corruption in the city of Vernon is a worthy goal. As has been mentioned, the appearance of self-dealing and you know, real egregious violations of any kind of public trust are pretty shocking, even with all we read about some local governments. So I'm sympathetic to that end of the bill. But when I look through the letters, first of all, you've got, you know, a 7-page packet from International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and the Labor Council that offers good steps towards reform. And the question's been asked of you, you know, why not let these go forward and see how that works out? And you said, you know, as soon as no one's looking, these good efforts could be rescinded or just let go. So I'm sympathetic. You know, I hear your train of thought, but between the labor issues and the business issues, and some of the business letters are, you know, almost have a, you know, a panicky tone to them. What is your plan under the bill? First of all, when the city's disincorporated, it becomes part of the county. Is it your vision that it will just remain an industrial area within the county and in an unincorporated area?
Yes. If you look at, and we'll get into this in more detail in 2 weeks' time, but the purpose of the bill is to disincorporate, make it part of the unincorporated county of Los Angeles, unless the County Board of Supervisors votes to allow it to continue to exist as a city. So that's the backstop.
So we go through all this, and then the county could still say it's still a city?
Correct.
All righty.
Correct. But when you look at the structure outlined in 781 as it has been drafted, we would have a community service district made up, governed by the County Board of Supervisors. Remember, as we've discussed it, Vernon is 2 places at once. It is a physical 5.2-mile space, but it is a regional economic engine for the entire county. The CSD, being governed by the Board of Supervisors, actually has a governance structure that is responsive to people throughout the county. And so it is responsive to both the employers that live throughout the county and the workers who live throughout the county. In addition to that, we were cognizant of issues raised by the business community of wanting to make sure that their voices are not lost in that process. So 781 outlines the creation of a municipal advisory council, which will include representation from business and labor and other stakeholders, and an area planning council. Again, to make sure that nothing gets lost in that process. But the idea would be to preserve the integrity of the business dynamic that exists there. Now, on the one hand, folks have said that the mere existence of the legislation has caused uncertainty and harm. On the other hand, they say, hold off. You can't have it both ways. By acting decisively, we will send a message that either we are moving towards disincorporation or not. And that is a question that's immediately before this committee, to give closure one way or the other.
What's going to happen to the water and power, or the
Governed by the
utility?
sea.
It'll be go into that district?
Correct.
Some of the businesses there, the food storage and the butchers and rendering, whatever, it seems to me they're there because they're delivering food to millions of Southern Californians. So they can't go very far. So I would want to make sure that the businesses have some security in staying there for multiple reasons. The jobs will stay there. The food supply and other products that they offer will stay close to their markets. And the idea that the bill is maybe, whether it's a fair response or not, making businesses uncomfortable and thinking that they would have to relocate, I do think that is a problem. So are you saying that the amends you're going to bring before us in the 2 weeks' time are going to help satisfy some of these questions?
What I'm saying is that 781, as drafted, speaks to each of the areas of substantive concern that have been raised. That the next 2 weeks will allow an opportunity for businesses, labor, and other stakeholders to review them, to kick the tires, to suggest improvements, or to express their continued opposition. And their expression of continued opposition could convince this committee to reject the bill. And if that bill is rejected, it then prevents AB 46 from being enacted. That's why I took the amendment today to double join, so that we didn't run the risk of allowing 46 to move forward, but not 781 that addresses those issues.
As the author and, as a state leader, you have to thread the eye of the needle.
Correct.
Cure the corruption, but maintain a viable government down there that is going to give the level of comfort to the employees and the employers that they have a future there in Vernon. So that, those are that's what I want to see when we come back with the second half of the next bill.
And that's what we've attempted to do in the drafting of 781, and that's what we will continue to do in the discussions with stakeholders around 781. I can't hold myself to a standard of convincing everybody and getting unanimity of thought. The unanimity of thought is a rarity, and I don't.
Not unanimity, but something less than fear and uncertain. The degree of uncertainty seems to be kind of acute.
Right, and that's why we seek in the legislation to create certainty.
All right, I'll support the bill this morning, and then we'll have to really look at those amendments. And I would like to hear from the opposition over the next couple of weeks about what their view is of the amendments, and I hope that you will be available, to work to a middle ground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Liu.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm sorry I missed the presentation earlier, but I want to, replow some grounds that you probably have already done. You are attempting to stop corruption in Vernon.
Correct.
What prevents the Attorney General or other law enforcement agencies from going in and just clearing house?
That is a question that is properly before them. They have done some efforts along those lines, but what we found, and I'm sorry to go over this for folks who've heard me say it before. What we found is the distinct difference in this place is that there is no ability for an independent electorate to express itself. Several members have made reference to the City of Bell crisis, for example.
Right.
In Bell, you had an independent electorate. You saw the creation of the organization BASTA. You saw a recall foment itself. You saw the voters go and recall the pre-existing elected officials, put in a new group, and begin the process of healing. That doesn't exist here, which is the question that is before us, whether or not the absence of an independent electorate, in this case, creates a unique circumstance.
So there are 89 people?
96.
96 folks living in...
And all but 4 of the residents that are controlled by the city.
And if they all resign tomorrow, they would be replaced by like kind?
Well, I can't speak to what would happen tomorrow. I can only speak to what has happened since the 1970s. The only member of the there's only one of the 5 council members who assumed office through election of the current members. That election was held in the 70s. Now, there have been elections between that time and now. Those council members are no longer with us.
And
between the mid-1980s and 2006, no election. Mr. Whitworth has a different recollection of the facts.
With your beginning this discussion on this bill has stimulated the folks that run this city to develop, quote, reforms that they hired the former attorney AG to take a look at Vernon. And I understand his report is supposed to come forward by July 1. Is it this year or is it done? I don't know that.
Are you speaking to
Van de Kamp's report?
Mid to late July.
Mid to late July. And are you expecting recommendations in his report to how you can further reform?
What I asked of former Attorney General Mr. Van de Kamp was to make recommendations in an ongoing process. We've been meeting weekly. One of my questions to him was, do I need to wait for your recommendations? And I said, don't you think I should just go ahead? And he said, no, you address everything that you think is important. And of those issues, the housing element that I hear about and the controlled, we've created a housing commission. And that housing commission is comprised of 3 business folks, 3 residents, 1 person from the council, and labor. So that's your independent oversight of the housing. They decide who are in those homes. I had heard that the homes are filled with city workers. 4. There's 26 units. The city did have a population of 1,300, but as businesses expanded and became very prominent, who's most likely to buy those houses as they come up for sale, but the businesses as they expand? That's how you end up with 26 units owned by the city. We still have 4 other units in the city that are owned by others.
Okay, and then I think this goes to perhaps Senator Kehoe's questions on page 4 of the analysis. There's a question in the analysis: is will it work if AB 46 solution to Vernon's troubles is cleared up? And I don't know whether or not, I know your current bill does not address all of the kind of intricacies about how to, it's a lot of stuff to take apart when you disband a city. Is that in your bill forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then let's just come down, I guess, to the quick here. I, too, have heard from the businesses in Vernon and the folks who work in those businesses, and they're very upset, as an understatement, and because they want predictability. I mean, companies want to know that they're going to be around and have the same rules and regulations, et cetera, so they can continue to make investment and continue to have people online. And that is of real concern, just simply because LA County has a terrible unemployment population, and we just we really can't afford to have unemployment rise in LA County. It's above the state average. And I know I'm a co-author on the bill. You got us all really early, and but just to know that, I do have concerns, and I may just vote on it today, just to do this today, but it's not a guarantee that we're going to go forward in having, if the second bill doesn't come back and really address and protect the businesses and the folks who work in those businesses, because they just need stability.
Your concern reinforces exactly why we've double joined the bills, so that if 781 doesn't satisfy the committee and doesn't satisfy the Senate, then neither of the pieces of legislation move forward.
You wouldn't consider holding the vote and hearing the bill to get kind of again? Are you having this kind of hearing again in 2 weeks to allow everybody to come and have
We are.
open discussion?
We are.
would you, I mean, I know he doesn't want it, but would you, you're the chair of the committee, would you consider holding the vote and hear, so we could all hear this together, both bills together?
The practical impact of the double joining achieves the outcome that you're
Yes.
desirous of.
That's what we did have that discussion. There was a discussion of scheduling. And the contingent enactment, I believe, deals with that issue.
Madam Chair, could I make a comment also on that? I agree. I do think we need to see the bills, directly connected to each other, and we did that with the amendments that the author's taking today. I have some of the same concerns, but I do think the contingent enactment, ties them sufficiently that if the next bill doesn't pass, this one will not move either.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Fuller.
Well, I have three issues. The first one, I think they've sort of taken care of, but it does seem to me that having a plan before me of remediation that I could judge sufficient or not sufficient would have been helpful to me. And I understand the contingent thing, but that's kind of not where I'm going. You'll see through the questioning. So we'll preface it with that because I think your intentions are good. But this is kind of let's say enough people moved in that we had 151 people move in before this bill was passed. Would that change your bill or not? Why or why not?
No. The bill, as I responded to Senator Huff's question before, Dr. Fuller, the bill had a fixed standard at a fixed point in time, so it wouldn't change this. But even if you increase the population from 96 to 151, it still doesn't address the threshold question where there is room for disagreement, and quite frankly, disagreement has been expressed about the independence of that electorate.
And that gets me to the very slippery slope that I'm really struggling with, which is the definition of independent. Who gets to make that definition and determination? Because, for example, where I came from in North Dakota, there's like 500 people live in the town and 499 of them are related because, I mean, not too many people move back to North Dakota in a small town unless you're like born there related. So it sort of troubles me a little bit about that, and I don't know how you would guarantee that definition of independent would be fair and independent in itself.
I understand. We didn't go to lengths to define it. It is not the trigger definitional issue within the legislation. But I think, as you've heard, 26 residences controlled by the city, 4 in private hands, the pattern of activities, the pattern of experiences, the lack of elections for 20 years, the fact that only one council member on the council currently achieved office through an election. All of those reinforce the fact of lack of independence. Sometimes it is easier to figure out the fact than it is to figure out the definition. There was a very famous Supreme Court case around pornography that says, I don't know what it is. I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it. I don't know how to define in a perfect sense the question of independence, but the facts on the ground are very clear to me that independence does not exist here.
And they're not so clear to me. I totally accept your explanation, but they're not so clear to me because in my last life as a school superintendent, I had board members that were union members' spouses. I had, teachers who were volunteers and parents. So there were multiple roles, and it was sort of my job never to assume that one role subsumed another, and I certainly wasn't allowed to disbar anyone or assume that they couldn't, in this case, play the role of citizen just because they're a worker or an employer. And so that's why I'm a little troubled with the independence notion, but I'll move on because I think this has got 2 more issues to it, and that is the precedent issue is also a concern for me. are you fairly certain that there's no other cities that have similar or worse need for reform?
Yes, I'm fairly certain of that.
Yes, and I'm fairly certain because I think I know of one sort of like in my area that needs that kind of reform. And then, then there's, and it's very small, and then there's this precedent whether, say, a big city such as Bakersfield, should be put in the position to do the same thing. And I don't think they're so similarly inclined. So having this like on a statewide issue is a big concern for me. And then last, but not least, is sort of what's problematic about today is that residents who are being rescued usually are grateful or at least somewhat happy about it. And in this case, the fear and confusion that I see speaks to either the lack of, submitting a plan at the same time, or that something is missing from the total piece. So I'm not really sure I can support this at this time, but I do look to you as a state leader to find resolution for all that everybody could feel really comfortable with in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Fuller. And just to reinforce the point, I mean, when you saw the great number of folks standing up both in support and opposition, they represent a broad cross-section. When you look at the folks who were standing up in support, that is a broad cross-section of my district. Vernon is in the heart of my district. I represent the majority of the cities immediately contiguous to it. I live just west of it. There is a broad base of support in that area for the legislation, just like there's a broad base of opposition from the businesses that exist there and from the workers that work there. This is not a simple question.
Certainly, I agree that it's not a simple question.
Thank you, Dr. Fuller.
Senator Hancock and then Senator LaMalfa. Senator LaMalfa, you first, and then
Thank you.
Then we'll close with Senator Hancock.
Well, I appreciate certainly the discussion and deliberation you have and your thoughtful way of working on this bill, and that it's a district bill too. So as much as possible, I try and respect that around here. And personally, I've deliberated and pondered on this for a long time since I first heard of it, because it's you make a great point on the very difficult problems that there is there, and so I guess you have to decide. The precedent we are setting here, is this a good one or a dangerous one? But I would also offer that in the spotlight you've put on this and the reforms that have come out, you have the press and editorials and everybody's watching very closely in this location here what is happening. You have a former Attorney General who's on top of it, has listed out some very positive and strong reforms to what's happening there. So in that sense, I'd say you've already succeeded in moving a long ways towards where the city would like to go, or where people that care about justice would like to see the city go. So I guess I get to the point of I'm faced with a decision here of basically pulling the death penalty on this entity here. And so
my understanding is you're in favor of the death penalties, Senator.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But that's of course after a very deliberative process when we do it, and we don't rush into that in the state either, as you know. So I'd say, given the ground that's been made up here, that we certainly could make a strong case that reform is on its way and in place, and that perhaps we should let that unfold and evolve a little more before we enact this bill or the 781 that would come along with it, which again I appreciate you're adding to the pieces in this bill with 781, which is trying to clarify for folks and provide certainty. So from my view, that you've succeeded already, but we're probably a little early again in my view that to enact something this far-reaching, a precedent-setting measure like this. So unfortunately, I can't support today what this is doing, but as it unfolds with 781 developing, who knows? But I appreciate the strong effort with that, and with you trying to drill down and get to the bottom of what's been a huge problem here. Elections that haven't happened. Now, as the case has been made, the elections do happen, just nobody chooses to run. So if you have a pretty small audience, and I have small towns in my district where people frequently are resigning or this or that happens, and so the others are appointed and nobody bothers to run next time because they're either happy or don't care, then that there's it's not unprecedented. That wouldn't happen either. So when we drill down on this, I think that we're making progress. So that's where I'm at today. So thank you,
Senator.
Senator Hancock.
Thank you very much, Senator Wolk. We've learned more about Vernon, I think all of us, in the last hour than we even had learned from all the publicity and the news articles in the last number of months. Vernon really became a symbol for corruption and self-dealing in municipal government, but the reputation for that and the appearance of that went out and really hurt the very idea of government and the idea of what the state of California is about. When I came in here today, I had 3 concerns. One is the issue of local control, which I generally, like many of us, most of us, I think, strongly believe in. But whether there was a real electorate that was capable of fixing what is wrong. And I am very persuaded that the small number of people, the tiny number of voters, the fact that there haven't been elections, the fact that people really have this great degree of interrelationship means that there isn't. I was concerned about some of the labor issues that came to my attention. I do have to say, in following back just the specific instances, they appear to have been, I think, answered. There may be more. And I haven't really heard much from the business community, but in looking at the letters, it seems more generalized fear than a specific something that's going to happen if LA County is in charge of the city of Vernon or Vernon Industrial Park, whatever, as opposed to the present council members. And I would very much like to see this come out with something that will make clear there's going to be straight-up governance that is going to answer the legitimate concerns of both employees and employers, that stability will continue for them. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that you would involve some of us that are interested in this. I would welcome both labor and businesses with concerns to let all of us know, and I'm certainly interested in working with you to ensure that the Speaker's companion bill does ensure that we can move forward smoothly. I think it's clearly his intent to do that. So, Madam Speaker, Ms. Wolk, Senator Wolk, I will move the bill.
Okay, thank you.
And
as amended.
As amended.
As amended.
And I'm prepared to vote for it today.
All right. Let me just, before I go to you for your close, just reiterate again that the recommendation is do pass as amended, and the amendment that is being taken is that this bill will be contingently enacted with 781 that we will hear in 2 weeks, that has basically the implementation and all the details that many members of the committee are looking for. I would just like to make 1 or 2 comments, the hour-and-a-half hearing coming to a conclusion. Was persuaded. I was taken by the comment of one of the witnesses who said, looked back in history and talked about rotten boroughs. And having been a history teacher, I hadn't thought about that, but that is in effect what you have here. And the issue is who can fix that. And this is your response as a representative of the area to try and remedy that. Whether or not this legislation succeed, the specifics of the legislation go through, it's been a shock to the system, and there has been a reaction. And it's a good reaction if it continues. So I think even in that sense, you've been successful. So I think there's still more to be said and more to be done. And I agree with my colleague, Senator Hancock, that this is really, it goes to the heart of the integrity, frankly, of the cities in California, and the importance of governance that the Senate Committee on Governance and Finance should be concerned about. So with that, would you like to close?
Madam Chair, would you allow me to have my principal
Yes,
code?
I would.
And then I'll just literally do 2 sentences.
That would be fine. Assemblymember.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Committee, just briefly, I think one of the points that was brought up by Senator Hancock in her final comments were about that we've learned a lot about the city of Vernon. But what's curious is we haven't learned a lot about the city of Vernon from the elected officials of the city of Vernon. Many of us have served in that capacity, and I'm sure you all feel the same as I do, that if there was legislation to deincorporate the city of Santa Clarita, of which I was a council member, I would move to Sacramento, and I would be here making comments and working to certainly to prevent the bill from moving forward. And yet, till to this day, I have never met any of the members of the city council in Vernon, and so I think that is somewhat telling. And then, finally, when the bill was first heard in the assembly, many of the business community was concerned. But yet it was never really articulated as to what the concerns were and what would happen. Why would they have to move if AB 46 moved through? The talk about rates and business in a good business environment. Well, the city has already increased rates to through the water and power because of the economy has changed. So they are seeing an increase in that just on the natural. So to say that just because of AB 46 that would change things, again, leaves up for question. And I believe that AB 781 goes a long way to address some of those concerns. So I appreciate the committee giving me just a few minutes to comment, and I'll turn it back over to the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Madam Chair, Senators, I want to thank you for a deliberative process. I ask for your aye vote, and I look forward to joining you again in 2 weeks to address AB 781.
All right. The motion is to pass as amended. Please call the roll.
Wolk?
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Huff? Huff, no. DeSaulnier? Fuller? Fuller, no. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Hernandez? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa? No. LaMalfa, no. Liu? Aye. Aye. Liu, aye.
You have 4 votes. It takes 5 to come out of the committee. We will leave the roll open for the absent members.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take just a second or two while we clear the room. Assemblymember Norby, would you please come forward? Are you here? Can we have some order here? Let's proceed. We have 4 bills. Assemblymember Norby, 1045. Assemblymember, have you accepted the amendments?
We have not.
All right. Let me, in that case, let me be clear. If you had accepted the amendments, then my recommendation to my colleagues would be do pass as amended. Since you do not, I will be recommending a no vote.
We understand.
Would you like, you can make this a 2-year bill, or you risk the no vote?
We'll address that in our presentation if we can.
That's fine.
Maybe have a little bit of a dialogue.
That's fine, as long as we know where we're going. Okay. Please present.
Madam Chair, AB 1045 will help restore the integrity and independence of school bond issuances by delinking them with purely political considerations. The choosing of a bond broker firm should be a competitive process based on merit, not on which company made political contributions. Imagine if your legislative staffs were hired by the very same contributors who bought those seats based on campaign contributions rather than competency. Such an arrangement would be illegal and unethical. Yet this kind of linkage is going on in school bond elections. The very same companies that are paying for the political polling, that are managing and funding school bond campaigns, are automatically being awarded the bond business when the bonds pass. This pay-for-play is corrupting the entire process of passing school bonds. Whole campaigns are bought and paid for by outside bond brokerage firms motivated by profit, not by educational concerns of the community. And the awarding of the bonds themselves are linked to these contributions that are made to the passage of the bonds. This does an end run over community participation and turns bond elections into cookie-cutter campaigns financed by outside interests rather than community groups. Now, proponents of this pay-for-play system have long claimed that it makes it easier to pass bond elections, but it does so at the cost of the integrity of the entire election process itself, and by inflating the cost of those issuances, since the bond brokerage companies factor in the cost of contributions with the issuances made later. AB 1045 is needed to restore grassroots campaigns, enlisting teachers, parents, and community groups into the debate, a debate now silenced by the influence of unlimited outside money. School bond elections should be determined by community need, not by Wall Street greed. AB 1045 in its current form passed the Assembly by a 48-14 vote and is sponsored by the California Treasurers and Tax Collectors Association. Speaking in favor are Karen Lang, representing the California Treasurers and Tax Collectors Association, Michael Hulsizer of the Kern County Superintendent of Schools Office, Lori Ranieri of Government Financial Strategies, and Chuck Lomelli, who is Treasurer Tax Collector of the County of Solano. Karen?
Thank you, Madam Chair and member. I'm here on behalf of the California Association of County Treasurers and Tax Collectors. This is an issue we've long pursued. We understand that the bill that is in print before you is only a small piece of the pie in terms of solving the problem of pay for play. We think it's an important one. Any pennies that go towards paying for the campaigns are pennies that do not go into the classroom, and that's what we're after, is making sure that it's not going to Wall Street, that it's truly going into the classroom, and that's what the voters approved. With me is Chuck Lomelli and also Rusty Watts from the Contra Costa County Treasurer Tax Collector's Office.
Okay. Do you want to let's go?
Chuck, do you want to go first?
Who's next? And support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. My name is Chuck Lomelli. I'm the Treasurer Tax Collector in Solano County and also the Treasurer for 7 districts in Solano County. I testified today on behalf of the Treasurers and Tax Collectors throughout the state and for our association. We're asking the committee to pass AB 1045 because we believe it will bring improved transparency, efficiency to the debt issuance process, add value to the very students that we are attempting to serve, and eliminate the corrupt practices of funding bond campaigns with bond proceeds disguised as underwriting fees. Specifically, this bill targets financial firms that bundle services in negotiated transactions that include fundraising, public opinion polling, election strategy, get-out-the-vote services, campaign literature and advocacy materials, among others, and paid for with underwriting fees or bond proceeds. I'm not against these firms providing services or providing funding for these services. What I am against is the taxpayers paying for the services through the backdoor process of paying for the services with bond proceeds meant to assist the very students. At a recent conference, representatives from the industry stated two things. One, that the process was illegal and therefore does not happen. If that's true, they should not object to the bill. The second thing that was admitted was it does happen, but that schools have no other ways to fund the campaigns. A campaign should be separate and distinct from the debt issuance process. In many cases, the school districts are forced to get the bond measure passed. The treasurer is focused on the efficient issuance process and the lowest cost of financing available. This clearly presents a conflict. I, as the district's treasurer, want my districts choosing a financing team based on its ability to issue debt at the lowest cost and in the most efficient manner, not on its ability to get a bond measure passed. The issuance process is different from the campaign process. One does not necessarily complement the other and subjects itself to corruption. These are two distinct processes that should be separated by statute. I believe the committee has been presented with material that documents some of the more egregious cases. I would ask that the committee pass AB 1045, which would improve the debt issuance process for school districts and eliminate a loophole that opens itself to corruption and the costly process hurting the very students that we are attempting to assist. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Further support.
Yes, my name is Rusty Wass from Contra Costa County, the Treasurer Tax Collector there, and I'm also here in support of the bill, urging your serious consideration in favor of it and your vote of aye. I, too, have seen over the years, either as the Chief Deputy under my predecessor or currently as I've been recently elected, this prepackaging going on among school bond issues, and I'm also concerned about the inside deals that are occurring there, and would urge that this bill be passed in order to prevent these illegal practices from going on. Would certainly stop the backdoor approach that we've seen happen in the campaigning and funding of these bonds. As a guardian of taxpayer money and, of course, the taxpayers' trust, and in my own good conscience, I can't sit back idly and allow illegal deals to go on anymore, and ask for your support and in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Further support, and I'll ask you to be brief.
Yes. Lori.
I'm Lori Ranieri. Good morning. And I'm the president of Government Financial Strategies, and I will be brief. But I am an independent public finance advisor located here in Sacramento. I'm also a certified fraud examiner. And our firm works exclusively with public agencies, and our professional activities include advising hundreds of public agencies with respect to financial strategies and include third-party reviews and expert witness work. I'm here to speak on behalf of AB 1045. AB 1045 is about bringing clarity and illumination to the illegal funding of bond campaign activities with taxpayer money, which unfortunately is all too common. Madam Chair, I know you are aware that within your area of representation there are several school districts, large and small, rural and urban, with school bond measures approved by the electorate following a campaign funded in conformity with the law. It is simply not true that school districts cannot pass bonds by following the law. I know that they can. My research and analysis has demonstrated that millions of taxpayer dollars, which have been diverted from their proper uses to reimburse professional service firms for their sometimes hidden costs incurred on behalf of the bond campaign. After providing hundreds of pages of documentation to the Kern County Superintendent of Schools and the California Association of County Treasurer Tax Collectors, I boiled my conclusions down to the bare minimum, and I've passed out my 4 reasons in favor of AB 1045, which I believe you have. I have been asked by reporters whether there are more situations like the one in the city of Bell, the exposure of which led to a Pulitzer Prize for the Los Angeles Times, and we'll see whether taxpayers receive justice for any wrongdoing that has damaged them. I believe that the best way to deal with bad practices is to replace them with good practices. one of our key weapons to prevent fraud is the tone at the top. Today, the leaders in this room have the opportunity to set the tone at the top, unequivocally and without compromise. When I studied the foundations of law and society with Professor Philippe Nonet of Bolt Law School at UC Berkeley, he taught that the purpose of law is to remind us of what we know is right. I encourage the committee to focus on three things. First, existing law, which your own attorney, the Legislative Council, has twice opined in 2003 and 2010, makes illegal the bundling of bond campaign services with other professional services that are compensated from bond proceeds. I have copies of these opinions should you need them. Second, you have heard from many people that this bundling practice is common. Third, please focus on the bill before you now. If you believe that the Legislative Council opinion properly describes the current law, and you understand the evidence that the law is being routinely violated, then ask whether AB 1045 provides the clarity and illumination needed to try to prevent further illegal activities. I believe it does. Thank you.
All right, thank
Madam
you.
Chair, Michael Holstead.
Identification only at this point.
Michael Holstead on behalf of the Kern County Superintendent of Schools in strong support of the bill.
Thank you.
Holly Fermini on behalf of the Orange County Board of Supervisors in support.
Thank you. Further in support? All right, witnesses in opposition? Come forward, please, and please vacate the chairs. Thank you.
Come on, Daisy.
This is much better. All right, who's speaking first?
I am.
All right.
Laura Preston with the Association of California School Administrators. We are in opposition to this bill. First, I have to say that it's not illegal for underwriters, bond counsels, and others to do this work, as has been alluded to. And one of the things that we have often asked of the sponsors, because this is about the fourth iteration of this bill that we've dealt with over the years, the same issue was defeated last year in this similar committee with local government, but that we've had no proof of this pay for play. That, in fact, what's being alleged is that by utilizing these companies that and to do some of the work earlier in the bond campaigns, that it's now, instead of just having it clear and free and knowing what the cost of issuance is going to be, that those additional costs are being embedded at the back end. There's absolutely no proof of that. There's already by law, there are flat rates for certain types of services. In addition, there are a lot of what happens is the negotiated sales, or the when we're selling our bonds, it's up to the interest rates of that day, that moment, the entity itself that's selling the bonds, if they're large, small, have a good credit rating, whatever. Those things are what play into the cost of issuance for a school district. If this was an issue that we felt that was something that needed to be done, we would be coming forward and asking for it. But as you heard, there's very few school entities that are in support of this measure. We also believe that this is flying in the face of local control, that school districts issue bonds primarily throughout the state. It's the school district themselves that issue the bonds, not the county treasurers, and that we would have to question, in fact, if the county treasurers are trying to take over our ability to issue bonds. Is that the real purpose of this piece of legislation? So for those reasons, we're in opposition.
Okay, thank you. In opposition?
Dave Walrath, representing Small School Districts Association. Most small school districts do not have a large revenue source. When they do a bond campaign, they need to be able to have assistance in conducting the campaign. They do not have internal staff who are able to provide information on polling and those types of activities. So they do rely upon outside consultants. The bill would limit the access to outside consultants. That would have two consequences. The first, potentially drive up the cost of receiving those types of services. And secondly, reduce the probability of passage of a school bond. And for small districts, it's important to be able to pass because you cannot access the state school facility program and matching funds unless you have passed a bond. There are some small districts who are excluded, but almost none. So the success is dependent upon consultants, and that's what the research has shown. Those bond campaigns that are attempted without experience and expertise, the result is that they tend to fail. Those who do have good consultants, who do have those types of services, do succeed. Just as AXA, we know of no situation where there has been pay to play. We are opposed to the bill.
In opposition?
Madam Chair, members, Brian Rivas on behalf of the California School Boards Association. Really just want to concur with my colleagues and reiterate that we're unaware of any evidence. And remember, when you look at cost comparisons in this area, to take a look at whether or not local agencies are in fact paying more for financing when you use a firm that bundles campaign services with underwriting, you have to control carefully for the local agency's bond rating and market conditions. We're unaware of any evidence that shows that the bundling practice results in higher financing costs. And I want to remind the committee, remember that we're subject to open meetings and bidding takes place and contracting in an open setting. So for those reasons, we see this bill as simply taking away options from local agencies, so we're opposed, or from school districts.
Okay. In opposition, briefly.
Madam Chair, members, Brian Shea Jones on behalf of George K. Bond and Company. We help a lot of school districts, a lot of local districts pass bonds. I'll just concur with the arguments that my colleagues have made and say that we did sit down with the sponsor, we did sit down with the author, we did ask for evidence of illegality, the kind of stuff. I think somebody earlier said the city of Bale. From our perspective, we don't want to participate in that kind of activity, nor would it help us in any way, shape, or form. It would end up probably hurting the passage of the bond. So for those reasons and reasons stated earlier, we're opposed.
Okay. Very briefly.
Madam Chair, members, Abel Guillen, Caldwell Flores Winners Incorporated. We represent about 120 school districts up and down California as independent financial advisors, and echo the sentiments of the previous speakers, and we're opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Further opposition? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to speak to the committee first about my recommendation. The overall subject, I think, is an important one and a critical one. Those of you that have been involved in schools and bonds and know that, and Senator Hernandez has legislated in this area. I felt and spoke to the author about the fact that I thought that the bill painted was too broad. And after reading the analysis, there were certain amendments that I thought would make sense. The author refuses to take them. I offered the author earlier an opportunity to make it a 2-year bill. He refused. I will be a no recommendation on the bill. So are there questions of the author? By the committee? Senator Fuller.
I just need a couple clarifications. The witness that was earlier, that was the certified fraud investigator, I sort of lost your employer. What was the name? Who is she representing? I'm sorry, but you spoke a little fast for me.
I apologize, I'm a little nervous.
Well, that's all right, so am I.
I have a company called Government Financial Strategies.
Into the mic, please. Thank you.
I have a company called Government Financial Strategies. We're a private company. We work exclusively for public agencies.
And does your work involve in advising school districts about bonds?
Yes.
I see. And are you a multi-service company or a single-service company?
We provide many services, and we don't just work with school districts.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then the sort of the other question I have of the author is, so is your intent not to allow school districts to use multi-service companies?
The linkage of political consulting and campaign contributions with issuing the bonds, yeah, my intent is not to allow that. That is not allowed in any other field of political endeavor. If any of us did this as political candidates, that would be a problem.
As I understand it, I'm not completely sure that that is currently allowed. I'm just trying to clarify, so thank you.
Yes. I need to correct what I said. I thought you meant by multi-service, do we provide multiple services?
Mm-hmm.
We do not provide any political consulting whatsoever. We provide solely financial consulting.
So you sell bonds?
No, that would require being an underwriter.
So what exactly financial service do you provide?
Well, what I tell my clients is if it requires a spreadsheet, you don't need to do it every day. That's what I do. So I help clients figure out how to finance projects, how to budget, for capital projects, deal with cash flow shortfalls, that kind of thing. So no political consulting whatsoever.
Okay.
Senator Fuller, this is not just about school bonds. That's part of my concern about the bill. It needs work.
I totally agree that the reach is very, very, very broad and would benefit by narrowing. But I also sort of am concerned that I understand what the broad reach could be narrowed to. Thank you. And I won't be supporting the bill either. I would be supporting the chair's recommendation until we can get to a place where I feel that the goal could be met by the instrument. Thank you.
Further questions? Is there a motion? Yes, Senator LaMalfa?
Please.
All right, then it has been moved, and the chair's recommendation is no. Please call the roll. Wolf?
I'd be happy to explain why we're not.
I'm sorry, you get an opportunity to close. I apologize.
My closing was made most eloquently by those who spoke in opposition to the bill. You've heard several people say that school districts need to pass bond measures. Well, at the point that it qualifies for the ballot, school districts are a neutral observer. That's up to the voters. So I think they've proved this linkage more than any eloquence I could give. I think it also makes the community participants, the PTAs, the teachers groups, the parent groups, they're cut out of the process. It becomes a cookie-cutter type campaign which is arranged in advance. The reason I didn't accept the amendments, Madam Chair, was no disrespect for your willingness to compromise, but my understanding the amendments effectively turned into a study bill trying to gather information about this, and my impression is that information is already available and does show that there is a problem, and that turning it into another study bill wouldn't serve the purpose of the bill other than to delay it and hope it goes away.
Okay.
And I ask for your vote.
Respectfully, we disagree. We have a motion. Please call the roll. The recommendation is do pass. Chair voting no.
Wolk?
No.
Wolk, no. Huff? DeSaulnier? Fuller? No. Fuller, no. Hancock? Hernandez? No. Hernandez? No. No. Kehoe? No. Kehoe, no. LaMalfa? LaMalfa, aye. Liu? No. Liu, no.
You have 2 votes. We will leave the roll open.
I'm proud of all 2.
You need 5. Okay. Item 20, we have 3 bills left. Item 20. Do we have Assemblymember Achajian? I hope I said that right. Great. 2 to 4. Oh, no, 1 vote. Sorry. No. Thank you, Senator Kehoe. I think it was 1. Vote count is 1 to 5. Just had off what? Just missed by 1 vote here. All right. Assemblymember Achajian, please begin on 1125.
Good afternoon, and honorable members. I'm pleased to present AB 1125, which would allow San Luis Obispo County to offset service rates for qualifying low-income households that are unable to afford wastewater services rates in the Los Osos Community Service District. In 1998, the community of Los Osos formed a community service district to construct a sewer system. Soon after, legislation was passed in 2006 to authorize the county of San Luis Obispo to construct and operate a wastewater treatment system to address the needs of the Los Osos community. As a former supervisor of the county through which this proposal came from, I became very concerned that all community members of Los Osos need to have equal access to wastewater treatment services, and we need to provide a mechanism for San Luis Obispo County to be able to offset sewage rates for low-income households. Currently, San Luis Obispo has secured total funding for the Los Osos sewage project, although the county has already secured $11.5 million in state and federal grants to direct towards overall costs of the sewage project. This legislation is needed to give the county the ability to create a sanitation offset rate program. in constructing the rates, the grant monies that are used to lower the overall cost of the project will allow for the county to then transfer those savings to families that are unable to pay the proposed rates. My office worked extensively with Legislative Counsel to ensure that the language drafted in this bill will not be in violation of Proposition 26. AB 1125 is sponsored by the San Luis Obispo County Board of Supervisors, and this bill has received no votes in its previous committees and on the Assembly floor. I have with me today Pablo Ogren, Director of Public Works of San Luis Obispo County, and representatives of San Luis Obispo County to provide support and expert testimony on the bill. I have asked them just to identify themselves and not to speak because of timing issues, but if you have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, identify yourselves.
Karen Lang on behalf of the San Luis Obispo County Board of Supervisors. This is fulfilling a promise. Urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Okay.
Pablo Ogren, San Luis Obispo County Public Works Director, and on behalf of the Department and the Board of Supervisors, urge an aye vote.
Any further support? Opposition? Questions from the committee? Move the bill. Motion. It's been moved. Do pass. Please call the roll. Oh, would you like to close?
I'm okay. Thank you for your consideration.
You're great. All right. Please call the roll. Do pass.
Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Huff. DeSaulnier. Fuller. Hancock. Hernandez. Aye. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe. Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa. Aye. LaMalfa, aye. Liu. Aye. Liu, aye.
You have 5 votes. That is sufficient to get out. We'll leave it open for the absent members. Senator Nielsen, you're next.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Nielsen, I'm going to ask you, we have a situation where we're not going to take amendments today because of the urgency, but in the Senate Appropriations Committee, provided this moves forward, the bill will take 2 amendments clarifying the starting fiscal year and extending the temporary program by 1 year. Are you amenable to those?
Absolutely, and that would be clearly the intent of the author and would facilitate the original intent of the bill. So that those will be indeed inserted with my enthusiastic endorsement and support in the Appropriations Committee.
Super. And you have support on both sides, so who's in support?
It's a very simple bill. It really weans the Williamson Act off of the state general fund, but yet preserves it at the same time. We will have to, in the future, do more. This is about another step in the continuum of preserving agricultural land, but this certainly is a bridge to the next step, and we would appreciate your indulgence and support.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members, John Gamper representing the California Farm Bureau Federation. This bill has been before you in one form or another 4 times in the last 10 months. I don't think there's need to discuss what the bill does, but we would like to thank the committee for expediting its consideration today. It will help the 8 counties that implemented the bill last year to continue to move forward prior to the June 30th implementation date for the tax roll. So we'd urge an aye vote. Thank you.
The race begins. In support.
Madam Chairwoman, other members, Paul Yoder on behalf of the counties, the boards of supervisors in Shasta, Merced, Stanislaus, and Tulare. They've taken some hard votes to assess folks more locally, and we appreciate you moving the bill today. Thank you.
Okay, in support.
Kathy Mannion, Regional Council of Rural Counties, here in support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pablo Garza with the Nature Conservancy, also here in support. Thank you.
Further support?
Karen Keene on behalf of the California State Association of Counties in strong support. Thank you.
Gail Delahunt, Western Growers Association, in strong support.
Further support? Opposition? Hearing none. Questions from the committee? Senator LaMalfa moves the bill. Do pass to appropriations, and there 2 amendments will be taken.
Just a quick
Senator
comment,
Kehoe.
Madam Chair. Mr. Nielsen, I support the Williamson Act. It's important. The problem with the bill, though, is enactment or success of the enactment would be tied to a pretty expensive price tag in the state budget. So I'll stay off the bill today, and we'll talk about the fiscal impacts when we get to appropriations.
I don't understand what you mean, the substantial fiscal impacts on the state budget.
Well, in previous versions, there has been about a $10 million appropriation to make
That's
this.
not linked to this bill. That would be hoped for in another manner, in another way, but that's not a part of this bill. It's not double joined.
Right. I don't think it is, but I'll look at the fiscal issues when it gets to approach. Thanks.
Okay. Would you like to close?
Ask and I vote.
All right. The motion. Who made the motion? Senator. It is due pass to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Huff. DeSaulnier. Fuller. Fuller, aye. Hancock? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe? Lamalfa? Aye. Lamalfa, aye. Liu? Aye. Liu, aye.
It has 5 votes. That is sufficient, but we will hold the roll open for absent members.
Thank you, Chairman Walker and members.
Our last bill is Assemblymember Torres, 1275. There you are. Welcome. This bill is double referred to the Senate Judiciary Committee to deal with contract issues. Comment number 3.
Thank you.
Please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And excuse me, could I have the sergeants call the absent members? And we are on our last bill. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Assembly Bill 1275 would make it clear that redevelopment agencies cannot delegate their authority or decision-making power to a person, and would allow a court to find a contract null and void if it violates the community redevelopment law. Redevelopment agencies can seek validation of redevelopment plans or amendments in court. The public only has 60 to 90 days to challenge a redevelopment agency's validation suit, pending on the activity being validated. This very short time does not give the public enough time to challenge an RDA's actions before they are validated. In a recent case in Southern California, an RDA entered into a contract with a developer that required the RDA to pay 100% of the project tax increment to the developer, and the RDA failed to fulfill its affordable housing obligations. Although the redevelopment agency plan was validated by the courts, it was later found to be illegal. The example that I cited provides a strong argument for the need for this bill. I am concerned that this may not be an isolated incident, and the short statute of limitation to challenge validation actions may result in losses to taxpayers and abuses by RDAs. Assembly Bill 1275 is not intended to jeopardize the activities of RDAs that comply with the community redevelopment law. This bill would only affect bad actors that violate the CRL's grossly abuse of their authority. I ask for your support.
All right. Witnesses in support?
Christine Menahan, Western Center on Law and Poverty. I think that most of the issues have been ably covered by the Assemblywoman. I would only add that we in no way want to jeopardize the bonds. We are looking at the kinds of things that we have to reform this year when we're looking so closely at redevelopment in order to ensure that the future bondholders don't look at their investments as very potentially capable of being challenged. Does nothing to lawful contracts. It simply says that if it is an unlawful contract, the court will be allowed to invalidate it. And finally, in the situation that the Assemblywoman described, we were the attorneys in that case, and simply point out that over 20 years, that over $1 billion in interest, the 5.5% interest that was attached to those bonds, they now owe $1.3 billion, and almost $1 billion of it is the interest. The contracts, or the reason we care about the contracts, are this is the best case that we have, but it's one of quite a number that we have brought over the last decade. In this one case, the developer had to had to agree with any increase in bonding. They were not, the redevelopment agency was not permitted was not permitted to do a number of very important, very vital contract issues unless the developer agreed. So here we are facing a situation, which is, again, I'm sorry to say, one of many, where once a illegal, unlawful, and infeasible, financially infeasible contract has been validated by the court, that we're challenged. We're severely challenged in being able to do anything to protect the community against that kind of abuse. Thank you.
Okay, further support for the bill? Are you getting up? Opposition? Come forward.
Good afternoon. Hugh Bauer on behalf of the California Redevelopment Association. And unfortunately, regretfully, we do have to oppose. First off, unfortunately, our bond counsel opines that the way this is drafted, it would impact our ability to certainly impact the cost of municipal finance through bonds, and potentially make it all that much more difficult to even sell bonds to begin with. We also take issue with language that limits the ability to delegate authority to staff and directors of agencies. The bill has language that prohibits RDAs from delegating authority, and we take issue with that. The analysis quotes from the appellate court decision, which describes the failure to fund the low and moderate income housing fund in the Fontana case. We absolutely agree that needs to be enforced, and are willing to address that issue head on. I also want to suggest that the Redevelopment Association has been committed to reform this year, and we're certainly willing to address these issues further.
Could have fooled me. That's a switch. Are you worried about something?
Well, I mean,
don't have to answer that.
It's candidly yes, but we've been willing to address reform.
It's a good place to start.
I'm sorry.
It's a good place to start.
Well, I mean, in the defense of CRA, I mean, we've addressed reforms for years, and so this bill is directed at a particular case that happened in Fontana. We agree that it was inappropriate, and finally, I'd just like to cite the committee analysis that I think stated correctly that this bill injects unnecessary uncertainty in what have otherwise been reliable decisions. Bond purchasers and other agency creditors will shy away from redevelopment projects if their investments may be subject to unpredictable legal challenges, even years down the road. So with that, we're love to work with the author, incorporate this in further reforms, and with that, unfortunately, we have to oppose.
Thank you very much. Further witnesses in opposition? Questions from the committee? Do I have a motion? It's been moved. Do pass. Double referred to. It's referred to Senate Judiciary. Close. Would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for your support for this very important piece of legislation. Thank you.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Volk?
Aye.
Volk, aye. Huff? DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Fuller? Hancock? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa? Aye. LaMalfa, aye. Liu? Liu, aye.
It has 6 votes. That's enough to get out, and we're going to go through the roll now. It will stay open until we close the hearing.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay. All right. Did we call the other members? And then you can go? The Lara bill was first. Lara's last. Okay, I will do that for you, Senator LaMalfa, even though you moved that bill. It's okay. Let's go. File item 24. Can I see it over here? Thank you. All right, we have file item 24, which is AB 1350. The vote is 6-0. Please call the absent members.
DeSaulnier? DeSaulnier, aye. LaMalfa? Aye. LaMalfa, aye. Liu? Aye. Liu, aye.
Item 24, we began with that. 9-0, the bill is out. All right. Let's see if there are any that we can close out with the members here. That might be one of them.
This might be one here.
All right, we're going to go to... Yes, we can. We will go to John, item number 1, AB 46, which was, it is, current vote is 4-3, do pass as amended. Please call the absent members.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye.
6-3, that bill is out.
I voted on everything else.
Yes, you did. Thank you, Ed. All right, where are we now? We can do that. All right, we will now go to the next bill, which is item 2, AB 1X15. Member Hill, current vote is 7-0. Please call the absent members.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
9-0, that bill is out. Oh, good. We will now go to AB 129, Assemblymember Bell, item 3, current vote 4-3. Call the absent members.
DeSaulnier, aye. Lou? Aye. Lou, aye. It's 9-3.
No, 6-3. 6-3, that bill is out. Oh, we have another one, good. Assemblymember Gorell's bill, that's item 7, AB 561, current vote 7-0. Call the absent members.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
9-0, that bill is out. Assemblymember Gordon, yes?
Madam Chair.
Yes, yes.
Aye.
Pardon?
Oh, that was consent item, okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. Item 8, AB 612, Assemblymember Gordon, do pass as amended, current vote 7-0.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Lou?
Aye.
Lou, aye.
9-0, bill is out. Hold that for a minute.
Yeah.
See if you have any of the two. You can get them out of here.
Hold on just a second. That's what I call Hancock's.
You need Senator Hancock.
This is,
Is that consent?
no.
Just trying to get you out of here.
Anyone has too many.
Okay, then just let's go through them.
Consent. Consent.
Senator Hancock, does anyone know? Did you communicate with her staff? Is she coming or? Oh, heavens. All right. Okay, we'll do the consent calendar. 7-0. Yes, the consent calendar. Please call the absent members.
DeSaulnier? DeSaulnier, aye. Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
All right, 9-0. Now let's just go through until we get on. All right, AB 654, Assemblymember Hueso, currently 3-3. Do pass as amended to approach. Chair voting aye.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
5-3, leave it on call. All right, AB 696, Assemblymember Hueso, currently 3-3, do pass as amended to approach. Chair voting aye.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
That's 5-3. We'll leave that on call. AB 700, Assemblymember Blumenfield, do pass as amended to approach. Currently 6-0. Call the absent members.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
All right, 7-0 on call.
8-0.
Yes, correct. 8-0 on call. Item 12, AB 893, Assemblymember Perez. The vote is 5-0 to pass to GO. Please call the vote. I'll call the roll.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
7-0 on call. All right, where are we now? Assemblymember Norby, 1045. Do pass was the motion Chair voting no. Currently 1 in favor and 5 opposed. Please call the absent members.
Huff? DeSaulnier? No. DeSaulnier, no. Hancock?
1-6. On call. Assemblymember Achajian, or did we do that? No. No, Brownlees was removed from the agenda at her request. Item 19, Assemblymember Perez, 1094, currently 3-3, chair voting aye.
DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock? Lou? Aye. Lou, aye.
5-3. 13 was removed from the agenda at her request. No, actually, it's a 2-year bill. All right, next, Assemblymember Achajian, 1125, current vote 5-0, do pass.
Huff? DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Fuller? Hancock?
6-0, on call. Senator Nielsen, is that next? Yes, 1265. Call the absent members, currently 5-0.
Huff? DeSaulnier? Aye. DeSaulnier, aye. Hancock?
6-0, on call. Assemblymember Torres, I think that's done. No? All right, please call the absent members, 1275, currently 6-0.
Huff? Fuller? Hancock?
Oh, all right. No, just 6-0, on call. And the Lara bill we did.
We're done.
So we're done on that. Is this out?
Yeah.
All right. All right, thank you. We're waiting for Senator Hancock coming.
Peter, you
I'm going to wait another, please try and find Senator Hancock. I'm going to wait another few minutes, and then I'm closing down. Please let them know. Okay, let's go. AB 654, the vote is 5-3. It is out. AB 696, the vote is 5-3. That bill is out. AB 700, the vote is 8-0. That bill is out. AB 893, 7-0. That bill is out. AB 1045, the vote is 1-6. That bill fails. AB 10. Reconsideration granted. Okay. AB 1094, 5-3. That bill is out. AB 1125, 6-0. That bill is out. AB 1265, 6-0. That bill is out. We are.
We worked right through lunch.